H at your service. Did you hear the one about the farmer, the bishop, and the 29 Freemasons that entered a whorehouse? Oh, wait, wrong file. Those are my jokes for breaking the ice. Our ice has already been shattered long ago, as has our vision of the stability of purported reality. And now this one, this case study here, it will give you the cold creeps indeed. Her name, Olga von Klapventrap, 16. Olga was a useful ideologue on a solo sailing journey of goodwill and high-hat intentions to prove to the world that her donor's ways were right and just, and in the end would find unexpected vigilante justice at the hands of the greater world she couldn't comprehend. Location, the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Date, spring 2020. Information, rightfully, it is a tool man utilizes, creates, through the correlation of data which can be conveyed and docketed. Information. It can be the most valuable item to a person, but beware. It is also a framework, a mold, in which a person entraps themselves. By existing merely within a rigid prison of information, a human can become anything the information provider wishes that person to become. Today, they call these intellectual cul-de-sacs by the nomenclature information ghettos. If you find yourself down one of these dark alleys, you are as good as lost at sea. And that brings me to young Olga von Klapventrap and her experiences in the Atlantic Ocean during that now famous crossing. She was being paid and promoted to cross the ocean alone in a sturdy and cleverly designed sloop, able to easily be piloted by a young girl and withstand the worst weather and deadly dangers of the wild and windy Atlantic Ocean. The little boat was christened the Petard, by those elite advocates using this young girl as a promotional meat puppet to bring awareness and social programming to the people who so willfully are destroying the planet by existing and using technology or trying to survive by heating their homes. The Petard was a symbol of what the name meant. A bomb to burst down the doors of purported ignorance and allow entry into a stronghold. In this case, it was meant to ensnare the public in a new informational paradigm that would shape the masses into subservient slaves for a new world order. A reset or a directive controlled by invisible men in distant towers of influence. How apt that the truly explosive nature of this wooden petard was inside rather than outside. But enough of that until later in this missive. Olga had set off from the coast of France and concentrated her sights on New York City. She was already 2/3 of the way there when her environment began to get fishy. If you know what I mean, please pardon the pun. I'm sorry. It was a regrettably good pun. Anyway, her benefactors, ringmasters, if you wish, gave her little craft all the necessities needed. She had radios, flares, food for a month, lots of medical equipment, and warm clothing, etc., etc. Though small, she was barely alone with her GPS utility and self-steering rudder to guide her almost effortlessly across the formerly treacherous domain of mermaids and leviathan forces that ended so many lives in confusion and terror. Solar panels stored up energy for her use in a variety of electronics, providing information and entertainment. Within a few days, she'd blow into the Big Apple and blow the minds of people stuck in the industrial age of coal and gasoline. And then something weird began to transpire in this bomb-diggity boat of the Swedish teenager. She'd awake in her bunk below the deck, with scratches on her body. Through thick layers of knitted wool and artificial fiber. Oh, the hypocrisy! Artificial fiber windbreakers were red and swollen claw marks running up to a foot across her pale white flesh on her upper torso and down to her buttocks. They would happen regularly when she slept, and it seemed impossible to fathom how anything sharp was getting through her clothes. Then she would awaken to discover items misplaced, food canisters jumbled about, electronics shoved from shelves, etc. Yet other items, more readily available to be tossed about in the high seas, were still in their places. She would scratch her head, cry a little, and forget these anomalies completely. After all, she was told there was nothing more than logic in her world, and this was illogical, so therefore it really wasn't happening. Another morning, she awoke to find blood dripping lightly from the high-gloss wood walls inside her transport. It was another odd occurrence that didn't bear attention because there was no way that anything red and liquid would be able to get on her walls. The scratches on her body weren't producing any sizable amounts of blood either. Sometimes she'd awake in the night and keep her eyes closed while listening to her little Petard, the waves slapping it silly in a comforting and rhythmic pattern mixed with groaning. She wrote it off as the multitude of layered planking straining and relaxing around her, but eventually she could make out that the groaning would swell and ebb while pronouncing words. The voice was tough and angry, and cussing up a storm in English. It was slowly uttering obscenities. With only a couple days to go, she closed her eyes harder and squinted in fear, hoping the nighttime would cease. And sleep regained her mind and took her to rest for another night. But on awakening, the sound of clanging items and a slamming hatch were heard so vividly that Olga sat up in the early sunlight to witness a darkish wood-like figure standing at the entryway to the living quarters. Its slender back was turned to her as it grabbed food canisters and other items, throwing them out of the boat and into the endless waters. It hadn't noticed her awake, but soon was made aware of her by the overpowering smell of Olga's urine soaking into the mattress clothes and dripping onto the floor under her bunk. It turned. The thing was humanoid, but looked like it was carved from a tree, with a scowling face and dark sunken eyes within a series of aged folds. It screamed in anger at her, with a high-pitched banshee wail that made the girl drop a few pounds of fertilizer. And then it continued heaving bits of kit outside into the Atlantic Ocean. She cried in frustration as it methodically ripped out her radios and entertainment devices to sling them abroad into a deep blue grave. In her mind, it must have been a fevered dream and nothing more. No one was on her boat. No one could have been on her boat. She was alone, and land was nowhere in sight. There weren't any other craft visible in the portholes. The ocean was vast, flat, and barren. What she was seeing mustn't exist. And then her fear was overtaken by desperation. She screamed out to the infeasible figure, "Stop it! I'm saving the world! I'm trying to save the world from the evil of global warming!" It stopped its tasks and turned to face her. She cowered, slithering in her muck and pulling up a blanket over her face so only her eyes were visible to the otherworldly beast as it approached her with an accusatory digit extended, while hunched forward with murderous aggression. "Liar!" It screamed, wailing at her. "You killed me! You killed me for your folly!" "I'm a hero," she cried out in pain. "You chopped down my tree, and all these others just have your little joyride!" It squealed in anguish and fury. "My Hamadryad family decimated for your childish mendacity!" "I'm saving the woods! I'm saving mankind!" Olga screeched. "Mankind is evil! It has to stop hurting the world! I'm on a mission to stop humans from harming Gaia and the ecosphere!" "Who told you that humans were hurting me?" the wood wraith demanded. "Was it you?" "Science!" she blurted. "Who is this science? I want to rip its hide and decimate its bones," the ethereal attacker shouted in her face. "Science is truth," she answered in tears. "It's science, and it's consensus, and it's what reality is based on. Go away! You aren't real! Science told me!" The crazed entity lashed out, striking her through the woolen blanket and her clothes without touching them directly. Scratches ripped her flesh under her clothes, and she screamed in agony. "Did anyone ask me or my kind what we wanted?" the wraith recriminated. "Did science come to us and ever ask us what we wanted? Did it consider what was best for us?" "Science is trying to save you," Olga retorted, her eyes growing angry with the unbridled aggression of a cornered animal. "Humans are a plague on this world. We need to get them to vanish and return the world to normal." "Normal!" It scoffed and jabbered. "I want humans! I need humans! I need animals!" The creature lashed out and pounded the walls to its left and right, buckling the wood a little with its impressively forceful blows. And then it curled up inward and began to reminisce a while, reliving some past ecstasy within its preternatural mind. "The carbon dioxide," it moaned in joy. "That erotically enticing smell of breath and waste from a human. From a group of humans. It filled me with strength and elation you could never understand. I would have loved troops of humans to have drifted around me, herds of cattle, endlessly breathing things to feed me, to give me treats I yearned to have, effortlessly expelled from their heaving bodies." "Those are greenhouse gases," Olga rebuked. "They are destroying the world and making it ablaze with uncontrollable heat." "I was a tree, you stupid organism!" the wraith yelled at her. "I love greenhouses. I love heat. I thrive in it. I want it. Humans, give it to me!" And again he was lost in a daze of recollection. The carbon dust settling after a coal fire. The light sulfur dioxide thrill I used to enjoy. Those marvelous, wondrous moments when I was gifted by those unbelievably heady wafts of civilization's waste products. It stood, gurgling in a delightful reverie, unaware of Olga's movements. "I want humans to be humans," it proffered, "to be free, to be around me, and become a swarm of visiting angels bequeathing unto my brethren the good only they granted into this world." "You're evil!" Olga growled, rising to face the creature. "And you don't exist! Now die!" The Swede raised her right arm to point a flare pistol at the ancient and supernatural sight. She shot it point blank inside the tiny craft. It ignited in glowing red, bouncing off the Hamadryad and skittering to a stop in a corner under the bunk. Unaware of the power in the flare, the creature was off guard and fled onto the slim decks outside, fleeing from the burning stick resting in that cabin. Olga gave chase. She emerged to confront her tormentor, who was clinging to the sail at the front of the Petard. It had fear across its cragged features as she shot her second and last flare directly at it. The report smashed its face, then careened into the mainsail and flew off into the waters, where it glowed as it sped into the wake of her sailboat. In a final and futile effort, slipping on her own filth, dripping from leg holes in her pants, Olga ran at the weird apparition, hoping to smash in its face with the hard butt of the flare gun. She hoped to kill it for the transgressions it had uttered, demeaning science and global warming. She desired to cast it over and rip it to pieces, and the red she saw, overwhelming her cerebral processes, were the last intense emotions Olga would ever remember feeling in this life. Communications with the little Petard had ceased a mere day and a half from dock. People in the Mission Control Center back in Stockholm panicked, but were told to resist jumping to conclusions. Though voice had ceased, the boat was clearly tracking via GPS and making a steady voyage to its final destination. Everyone waited patiently, biting their nails and hoping nothing went wrong on that vast ocean, hoping their little savior girl was all right and the commission of their plan was fruitful. And lo, 30 hours later, earlier than anticipated, the little craft docked by sliding up onto a beach of Fire Island. It skidded in during the night when no one was around. The awaiting crew around the bend in Brooklyn was a little surprised to find the ship didn't steer into the planned dock near the main city, and they rushed down the freeways to visit Olga and welcome her, congratulate her, surrounded by copious news crews and live cameras. What the admiring throng found was not entirely pleasing. Though the ship was intact and Olga was indeed aboard and alive, she was tightly strung up to the mainmast, high and nearly mummified within the mainsail. Ropes and flaxen cloth restrained her impossibly. Only her red and snotty face was visible to anyone. A true panic set in as everyone rushed to get her down and get an ambulance to the shore. When down, Olga was barely alive. Exposure had hardened the skin and dulled her pulse and her other senses to a near standstill. And after a long and tedious rehabilitation, poor Olga was never able to regain her senses. She was a brain-dead hulk of flesh, jabbering endlessly about wood. It was, frankly, an embarrassment. Detractors claimed maliciously that she was brain-dead for years before the voyage. Others chided her obsession with the sexual organs of men. And yet, all Olga kept talking about was how the wood was never sated. It left the world cold, so to speak, though nobody truly stopped to observe Olga's hopeful objective, or stop warming themselves gleefully by fires of oil, coal, and gas. And her negligent backers remained curiously oblivious to what could have transpired in the ocean. Science had no explanation, so therefore nothing actually happened. It was just the hijinks of a crazy little girl, unworthy of the faith they had all hoped that the world would grant to her ideology. But it doesn't end there. You see, the Petard was fixed up and sailed about the northern Atlantic coast for a while, before it was mysteriously sunk off the port of Philadelphia one summer evening. The official report was that it just blew up into flames and vanished into the Delaware Bay. But untrue, I say, because I know. We have insiders everywhere. And one of the demolition crew works for us, XJ7. And he was told that the wood wraith was indeed seen again and again inside that little craft, and was tormenting the crews that would use it. Oh, since science couldn't understand these occurrences, the Clean Environment Initiative was commanded to destroy the petard in an accident and wipe the annoying aberration from existence. Partially for insurance money, but also because it wasn't fitting to the narrative they demanded of the world. Ah, science. And so ended the tale of Olga van Klappentrap, an ideologue hoisted high on her own petard.
Like and subscribe before I die! And ring the little bell or you will surely go to hell.
Oh, we're telling spooky stories. This is not a spooky story. Oh, there's no way on the couch I can
it
say.
depends how you look at it. It is kind of spooky.
I guess so.
Wait, that's it? That's the end of the story?
That is a